Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are here with Kathleen Rapoli, founder of SimplaFYI, and we are here today for Discover Gratitude and Grace. So thank you all for being here. Janine, would you mind just forwarding us along a little bit? I am the founder of SimplaFYI. SimplaFYI is a health and well-being company focused on integrative care. We partner with vetted practitioners of acupuncture, chiropractic, massage, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, health coaches, and many others. The goal is to expand awareness. Our vetted practitioners provide preferred pricing to members, and we partner with employers and primary care practices. So, tonight's session, I am very excited to have Janine Gilardi here with us as SimplaFYI Community Practitioner to share grace and gratitude.
Thank you, Kat.
Over to you.
Thank you. So, hi, everybody. Thank you, Kathleen, for having me, and thank you, everybody, for showing up. And I think, Maureen, you probably want to shut off the camera. Just for the recording. I think that's what Kathleen had requested. A little bit about me. I am a board certified health and wellness coach with a few specialty certifications. I'm a registered nurse, Reiki teacher and practitioner, and the founder of Coaching for Healthy Living. And tonight I'll be using my coaching hat for much of this presentation. So I'm sure you do not need me to tell you that life is stressful, and we all have never-ending to-do lists, constant news feed, social media, and of course, the holidays are upon us, which can be stressful and hectic for many of us. So rather than simply survive, I'm going to share how you can implement the practices of gratitude and grace so you can thrive. And from a purely habit change perspective, which is what I focus on when I have my coaching hat on, is that these practices can actually rewire your brain for more happiness. So scientists have actually proven, and I am a nurse and kind of a science geek, this excites me that there's evidence here, that your brain is actually being shaped, molded, and changed by our experiences every day. And this is referred to as neural plasticity. And just as a plastic water bottle becomes pliable when heated, your brain is also being influenced and shaped by what's happening in your life. So this scientific finding has really significantly changed and altered our understanding of how to effectively change habits and increase happiness. So behavioral and thought patterns are made up of groups of brain cells. I'm not going to get too science geeky here, but just so you have an understanding that our brain has these neural pathways. And I like to think of them as grooves in a record. If you remember records, I might be dating myself. But the more frequently you engage in a thought or a behavior, the stronger that neural pathway, the deeper the groove, and the easier the thought or behavior becomes. So essentially, this is called neuroplasticity, and it's your brain's ability to learn new skills and new habits. And in the coaching world, we have a saying, neurons that fire together, wire together, which I think is a kind of a neat way to think about this. So what does this mean for you? Just to really oversimplify this, if you focus on happiness with your thoughts and your feelings, you strengthen those happiness pathways. And you might be wondering, this sounds simple. Why is it so difficult? And that is due to what is called a negativity bias. So if we go back thousands of years, humans needed to constantly scan the horizon for threats, right? Today's world, not so much, right? It's really not important to be scanning the horizon for threats in order to keep us alive. But we do scan the horizon for other threats that might come up. And it's our tendency to pay attention to the bad things or what we perceive to be negative and overlook the good things. So I threw that quote in. And again, this is something psychologists refer to as a negativity bias, and we all have it. So we can direct more of our conscious attention toward positive events and feelings that we experience, and we can begin to overcome this negativity bias. This does require practice. So where do we start? So we can start with the power of positivity. So this is an interesting fact. The positive to negative ratio is at least 3:1. So that means for every one negative thought, you need 3 positive thoughts to really like neutralize that. It's like the whack-a-mole, right? You're gonna whack it out. And so that is why a positive mindset really needs to be continuously practiced. And so as you practice traveling down these new neural pathways, you naturally weaken old pathways. And over time, you can change the old habits and create a habit of lasting happiness. So there's a quote here. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. So we can't change the past, can't change the fact that people will act in a certain way, and we cannot change the inevitable. So the only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that's our attitude. So I'm convinced life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you, right? We are in charge of our attitudes. So what we choose to focus on grows. So why not, right? Focus on establishing new patterns that savor the positive moments. And we can do this within what I like to call an attitude of gratitude. We can engage fully in good sensations, happy thoughts, pleasant emotions that we feel, and make a note, right? Make a note of what we enjoyed about it. And there are certainly many ways to do this. One of the most simple and most popular practices, and can be very easy, is keeping a gratitude journal. So this simple practice, believe it or not, can help produce those feel-good hormones, there's serotonin and dopamine. And the more we think positive, grateful thoughts, the healthier and happier we feel. Another suggestion is to bookend your day with an expression of gratitude. So you would do this before you get out of bed, before you pick up your phone or you check your emails, right? And this can help set the tone for a very joyful day, setting the intention, right? And then at the end of the day as well, right? This practice can help release tension, promote a positive mindset, and it also encourages better sleep. So lots of nice benefits there. So paying attention to what you're grateful for becomes easier with practice. And in doing so, know that you're rewiring your brain's neural pathways, right, to what really doesn't come easy to us, and that is to focus on the positive. And I know that not every day is a joyful day, right? But honestly, if you're including and appreciating the little things, this can really help you to enjoy the moments that you have. And this is kind of what I mean when I talk about like an attitude of gratitude. So it's not about putting on the rose-colored glasses by any means. However, I do want to mention that our feelings follow from the way that we look at the world, the thoughts we have about the way things are, the way we maybe think things should be, and the distance between those 2 points, right? So if circumstances in your life aren't exactly the way that you would like them to be, or think that they should be, it can be helpful to change your focus. And that brings me to grace. And perhaps you've heard that term, you give yourself some grace. Maybe you haven't. So I'll do my best to break it down and give you an idea of how I interpret this. And when you're able to give yourself grace, how you do it can definitely help with you being able to manage stress. And it can help you release thoughts and habits that aren't serving you. So it goes very well with the notion of gratitude. And so when I think of, giving yourself grace, it's not only an action, but it truly is a mindset. And we are imperfect humans. We do tend to judge, right, all of our perceived inadequacies and failures, despite the damage this might do to our mood, our mental health, our general well-being. And I'll share a little scenario and see if you can relate. So you're trying to eat healthier. Most of us can relate to that. And your significant other brings home some ice cream, right? And it's the ice cream that you really enjoy. You tell yourself you're just going to have a taste. That we know where that ends up. And then we start getting down on ourselves, right? That's when those voices, right, of I should have been better. I wasn't being good, right? And that spirals into I have no self-control, and down the rabbit hole we go. So how do we give ourselves grace when we're only human? So giving ourselves grace allows us to choose to be kind to ourselves, forgive ourselves, right, for our imperfections, and or hurtful behaviors, because no one is perfect. And learning to forgive ourselves is a little easier if we can kind of step back and imagine a friend is telling us the same story that we're having a hard time forgiving ourselves for. We find it much easier, right, to give grace to others than to ourselves. So here's another quote from Kristen Neff. One way to give ourselves grace is with self-awareness and challenging our negative self-talk. And so, as I mentioned, the nature of our mind is to fixate on the negative. The thing is that most of us fall into the same thinking traps over and over. You'll see, right? 80% of our thoughts are negative. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. So the first step in challenging negative thoughts is awareness, right? We just need to notice them. And if we can catch ourselves kind of slipping into the same old negative pattern, that can be pretty helpful because they spiral very quickly. And so one thing to do is to think like a friend. And this is, Kristen Neff's work is all about compassion, and this is part of that. So when our inner critic is at its worst, it can really sound like our worst enemy. Often we will say things to ourselves that if we said them out loud to a friend or a child, for example, we would truly be horrified. So why not flip the script? When you catch yourself speaking negatively in your head, turn it around as quickly as you can. So, for example, if you find one of those negative patterns is should, right? You hear that voice in your head. I should have eaten less. I shouldn't have said that. My advice, stop shooting on yourself, right? It brings on too much guilt. I see you giggling. So instead, positive, encouraging thought you could try out. It was my choice, right? Next time I can choose to do it differently. And so when you give yourself grace, it can help you really bounce back from the negative thoughts and experiences. And it can be developed through the suggestions I mentioned, such as acceptance, positive reframing, practicing compassion for ourselves. So I just want to remind you that it's all practice, right? I think it was Shakespeare that said, like, life is but a stage, right? We're all in this journey. No one is perfect, as much as I might like to think I am. And as a coach, and as a fellow human, I know how hard it can be to change our mindset, to change our habits. So now that you have some framework and you know that it's possible, you have the evidence, right? That, okay, if I practice these, suggestions, if I practice these things that could potentially rewire my brain for more happiness, I would encourage you to give it a shot. The proof is in the pudding. So you don't have to trust what I'm saying, but you can try it out for yourself and see what happens. So I will wrap it up there. Do you want me to go to the next slide, Kathleen?
You certainly can, but and we do have some time. So before I get to the thank you, I would like to just open it up for folks to share a little bit about what are some of the challenges that you're facing as it relates to this. One of the biggest, and I will do some self-sharing. One of the things that has been really valuable for me, a little bit of the gratitude journal, but I have to say I'm not really committed to that, but it's just sitting on my mat for a moment and taking some breaths and reassessing, to your point. And yes, you're right. You did. I was laughing when you said, stop shooting on yourself. I have to remind myself sometimes, and that gives me the space to do it. So any suggestions that others have that they want to share would be welcome. Feel free to unmute and share in or chat in if you prefer. Nothing.
So I can offer up something, which we could actually do as a group if people are so inclined. If you would like to, I would invite you to. So another way to practice gratitude is, doesn't have to be a formal practice per se, but it is a practice in a sense of noticing. So I like to call it like the 5 things, but it can certainly be more than 5 things. But if you look around, like, what am I grateful for that I see? Right? Involving all your senses. What am I grateful for that I hear, that I smell, that I taste, that I touch, right? And also when I was doing research on this, it can be very powerful to think about who you are grateful for. So not just the things per se, but the people in your life. That can be a very powerful. So if you wanted to just take a moment, take a breath, and just notice your surroundings and note maybe just one thing. And depending on where you are, it could be, the night sky, it could your dog. So I don't know if anybody wanted to share one thing. Again, just an invitation.
Seeing some good things in the chat. We have be your own best friend, which I think is great. I was actually thinking that as you were talking through part of this, and that piece about, you know, talk to yourself as you would to a friend, right? You are typically loving and compassionate. Acknowledgement that it's a different way of thinking, to slow down and think about what you have and the simplicity of it, your family, your friends. I mean, one thing in the morning for me that I find very special, and quite frankly, used to find very annoying, is the sound of the birds. But at one point in my life, that was like, oh, you're waking me up. And now it's beautiful music. So it's amazing how when you start to think about, you know, reframing the way that you think, how things can transition.
Yeah, I love that, Kathleen.
Here's starting my day with grace and gratitude, but then get caught up in the day. That's so normal and so natural for so many of us. Janine, any thoughts on that you can share?
Well, it is a practice. So it does take time. So, you know, one suggestion is this idea of, it's called habit stacking. So if you stack one habit with another, so let's say, you know, okay, in the morning, like I start off with a bang, I have my practices, and then the day, right? Life happens. You might want to, if you were the type that checks your phone, right? Every time you check your phone, maybe there's a little Post-it note on the phone, or a screensaver that reminds yourself, you know, to take a breath and look around and be grateful and to be your own friend, or whatever it might be. So it is a way of attaching a new habit to something that you're already doing to help reinforce it throughout the day, if that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. And that's where my mat comes in. I really enjoy working remotely at home, because when I do need to just drop down for a moment, it's very accessible. So there are pluses to that. I have another one in the chat saying health, definitely. Oh, and that's very nice. And just positive vibrations, of course, always go a long way. Laughter, yes. And sometimes the silly can make us do that, like you're shooting yourself.
Yes.
So we are at 7:25. Thank you very much, Janine. This has been incredibly helpful. I want to thank everyone for your time tonight. What you can expect next is a thank you email from SimplaFYI, and you will get a link to the recording, a link to Janine's programs and services, a link to join SimplaFYI, a save the date, and just sharing that now. Our next Discover event is on December 13th. That'll be the last one for 2022. And then Janine, I think you had one last slide. You do offer preferred pricing, I think, to SimplaFYI members, and that is 20%. And you also are a Reiki practitioner, so that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We are going to say good night and see you hopefully December 13th. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.